What is the most terrifying place on Earth? Story 1. Off the coast of Brazil, there's an island you're not allowed to visit. Not because it's fragile, because it's lethal. Ilha da Queimada Grande, better known as Snake Island, is packed with venomous snakes, so many that the ecosystem tilted entirely in their favor. The most famous is the golden lancehead, a pit viper whose venom evolved to end birds mid-flight, fast enough that they don't escape into the ocean. There are places on the island where you're never more than a few feet from one. The Brazilian Navy banned civilians decades ago after fishermen died there. Even researchers aren't allowed without permits, medical teams on standby, and strict limits on time ashore. Not because a bite is likely, but because if it happens, evacuation may not matter. What makes the island unsettling isn't just the danger. It's the silence. No villages, no tourism, no trails. Just an environment that decided humans were unnecessary. Nature doesn't always fight you directly. Sometimes it just builds a place where you don't belong and makes sure you stay away. Story 2. I know an avid caver who rappelled into a natural cave shaft. This particular cave is about 3 feet per 1 meter wide and forms a nice hole to the bottom. Once at the bottom, he used technical gear to ascend the rope he rappelled on. The caver has done this particular cave before and was just deep enough to use natural lightning from the outside. He noticed something out of the corner of his eye. He thought the wall looked like it was moving. He turned the headlamp on his helmet on. Black widows. Thousands of black widows covered the cave walls. He then realized his gear to ascend the rope was in his pack, so he had to fully descend the shaft before going back up. Due to the angle of the shaft, the hole wasn't quite perfectly vertical but tilted a little. So as he rappelled, the rope below him would occasionally flick the wall. The black widows would scatter near the impact site. Personally, I call that cave the entrance to hell. Story 3. If there's a place humans were never meant to go back to, it's Vozrozhdeniya Island. For decades, this desolate island in the Aral Sea wasn't empty. It was a testing ground for biological weapons. Anthrax, smallpox, plague, agents designed not just to kill, but to spread, mutate, and linger. The Soviet Union used it as a proving ground for worst-case scenarios, releasing pathogens into open air to see what survived. Then the sea began to disappear. As the Aral Sea shrank, the island stopped being an island. Water retreated, sand connected it to the mainland. What was once isolated by miles of water became reachable by foot, along a seabed that may still hold buried spores meant to outlast time itself. The facility was abandoned, not dismantled. Buildings left to rot, test sites left where they were. Some cleanup happened, some didn't. No one can say with certainty what still lives in the soil. What makes Vozrozhdeniya different from other forbidden places isn't just danger, it's uncertainty. You don't hear it. You don't smell it. You don't feel it until it's too late. Nature reclaims ruins, but biology remembers. And this island was designed to be remembered by the wrong things. Story 4. The Mariana Trench isn't scary because it's deep. It's scary because it's complete. 11 kilometers down, sunlight doesn't fade. It never arrives. Pressure is so extreme it crushes submarines designed for it. And yet, life not only survives there, it specializes. Creatures with transparent skin, oversized jaws, teeth meant to grab anything edible because meals are rare and escape isn't an option. Look at them closely and you notice a pattern. Nothing down there evolved to be seen. Everything is built to sense vibration, pressure, movement. Light is either unnecessary or weaponized. Bioluminescence isn't decoration, it's bait, camouflage, or threat display in a world where hiding is impossible. What unsettles people isn't that these creatures look alien, it's that they look optimized. Perfectly adapted to an environment humans can't even visit without technology and luck. They're not mistakes, they're solutions. The trench isn't empty and it isn't dormant. It's a functioning ecosystem under conditions that should erase life entirely. We like to say the deep ocean is unexplored. That's comforting. The truth is, it's explored enough to know this. There are places on Earth where we were never part of the plan. Story 5. If any place on Earth feels like it actively rejects explanation, it's Bouvet Island. It's the most remote island on the planet, over 2,200 kilometers from the nearest inhabited land. No airport, no harbor, just ice, cliffs, constant storms, and an ocean so violent that landing is often impossible even with modern ships. And yet, in 1964, a life raft was found there. Not wreckage scattered by waves, not debris washed ashore. A raft, sitting upright, with oars and supplies nearby. No bodies, no footprints, no distress signals, no record of anyone missing who should have been there. When researchers returned later, the raft was gone. That's what makes Bouvet unsettling. Not danger, but absence. The island doesn't preserve stories, it erases them. Anything that arrives is exposed to wind, cold, and isolation, so absolute that even evidence struggles to survive. There are no native humans, no permanent stations, just cameras, brief visits, and long gaps of silence in between. Bouvet doesn't feel haunted because something bad happened there. It feels haunted because something happened, and the island kept it. Some places don't end you. They just make sure no one ever knows what became of you. Story 6. Thinking of Centralia. It looks like a normal rural town at first. Quiet roads, patches of grass, empty lots. Then you notice the smoke seeping from cracks in the ground. The air smells wrong, and if you stand still long enough, you can feel heat rising through the soles of your shoes. Beneath Centralia, a coal seam has been burning since 1962. The fire started small, an attempt to clean up a landfill, but it slipped into abandoned mine tunnels and never stopped. Coal fires don't need much oxygen, and they don't burn out on human timelines. This one is expected to keep going for centuries. Carbon monoxide-filled basements. Sinkholes opened without warning. Roads buckled from the heat below. One kid nearly died when the ground collapsed under him. By the 1980s and 90s, the government evacuated almost everyone. Houses were demolished, zip codes erased. What makes Centralia unsettling isn't that it's abandoned, it's that the town is still alive, just underground. You're not walking on land there. You're walking on a slow, invisible disaster that never learned how to end. Story 7. North Sentinel Island is one of the few places on Earth where the message is unmistakable. Do not come here. It's home to the Sentinelese, a people who have remained virtually untouched by modern civilization. No trade, no language bridge, no gradual contact, just absolute refusal. Boats that drift too close are met with arrows. Helicopters are warned off with spears raised skyward. Step onto the beach and you will not be welcomed. You will be attacked. This isn't hostility born of ignorance. It's survival. Contact has wiped out isolated populations before through disease alone, long before violence entered the picture. The Sentinelese know this instinctively, even if they don't frame it in modern terms. Outsiders mean death. Distance means life. What makes the island unsettling isn't aggression, it's clarity. There's no mystery about the rules. They've been enforced consistently for generations. The world has mapped, photographed, and legally restricted the island not to protect visitors, but to protect the people who live there. We like to believe there's nowhere left untouched. North Sentinel proves that's wrong. It's a place where humanity drew a boundary, and for once actually respected it. Some doors aren't locked, they're guarded. Story 8. Pripyat is unsettling because it wasn't abandoned slowly. It was abandoned all at once. Built to house workers from the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Pripyat was a modern, thriving Soviet city. Schools, apartments, parks, a hospital, an amusement park that never even got to open. Then the reactor failed, and within hours the evacuation order came. Residents were told they'd be gone for a few days. They never came back. What's left is a city frozen mid-sentence, toys still in classrooms, clothes in closets, calendars stuck on April 1986. Nature has been reclaiming it ever since. Trees growing through floors, roots breaking concrete. But the layout is still unmistakably human. And it's still dangerous. Radiation lingers in soil, dust, and structures. Hot spots remain. The threat isn't dramatic or visible. It's quiet, statistical, and patient. You can walk through places that look harmless and leave with contamination clinging to your clothes. Pripyat doesn't feel haunted because of ghosts. It feels haunted because everyone left at the same time, and the city kept waiting. It's proof that civilization can vanish in a single afternoon and leave everything behind exactly where it was dropped. Story 9. The Bolton Strid looks harmless, which is why it's deadly. Just a narrow stream in the woods, 6 feet across at most. You could almost step over it. But upstream and downstream, the river wharf is wide and deep, so the water didn't disappear. It turned sideways. At the Strid, the entire river is forced into a vertical chute carved through solid rock. The surface looks calm, but underneath are deep caverns, undercuts, and violent recirculating currents. No one knows how deep it truly goes. What's known is simpler. No one who has fallen in has survived. Many don't even resurface. The water pulls you down instantly and keeps you. What makes it worse is how unfenced it is. No barriers, no alarms, just a quiet path where people walk dogs, take photos, let kids play near the edge. It doesn't look like a hazard because it doesn't behave like one until it's too late. The Stride doesn't rush, it doesn't roar, it waits. And if you ever find yourself thinking, it's just a little stream, that's the last mistake it needs you to make. Story 10. Poveglia Island, just off the coast of Italy. Used by the ancient Romans as a place to quarantine people afflicted by various plagues. When they died, they were buried in mass graves on the island, used as a huge quarantine center during the Black Plague. More mass burials. By the end of it, so many people had died that the soil was reportedly 50% human ash, though this was using medieval estimates and was obviously unscientific, so who knows. An asylum was built in the center of the island in the early 1900s. Patients reported seeing paranormal activity, but nobody took them seriously. A surgeon working in the facility slowly started going insane and began to hear whispers even when nobody was around. He was frequently accused of brutally mistreating his patients and was murdered under unexplained circumstances after about a year on the island. The clinic was closed shortly thereafter. Currently, Poveglia is closed by order of the Italian government. People may not visit the island under pain of imprisonment and heavy fines. The official reason is that it's structurally unsafe, but fishermen refuse to even go near it because human bones from the burial pits are always caught on their fishing nets. Story 11. The Tsingy de Bemaraha Nature Reserve is terrifying in a way that feels deliberate. It's not a forest of trees. It's a forest of stone, razor-sharp limestone spires thrust straight up from the ground, packed so tightly they form a maze. Every surface cut. Every edge stabs. There's no soft place to fall, no safe direction to move without thinking first. The name Tsingy roughly translates to where one cannot walk barefoot. That's not poetic. It's instructional. People don't hike it casually. Traversing it requires harnesses, ladders, helmets, gloves, constant contact with rock that wants to flay you. One lapse in attention means torn skin at best, impalement at worst. Gravity isn't the main threat here. Geometry is. What makes it uniquely unsettling is the thought experiment you mentioned, waking up there without gear. No rope, no boots, no map. You wouldn't get injured and limp out. You'd bleed, exhaust yourself, and stop moving long before help ever mattered. Most dangerous places end you fast. The Tsingy would take its time. It's not hostile. It's just completely indifferent to whether the human body was ever meant to exist inside it. And that quiet, patient lethality is what makes it unforgettable. Story 12. I'm a bit late, but the city of Goma, in the Congo, or the Democratic Republic of Misnomers, exists between a massive active volcano in the north and a toxic gas-filled lake to the south. The tectonic force from a volcanic eruption would likely trigger enormous amounts of poisonous fumes to explode violently out of the lake and choke all surrounding shoreline with deafness. Basically, several million people currently live in a situation of imminent destruction with virtually no provision for evacuation or disaster prevention. If that volcano goes off, which it could do whenever, Goma is gone. Story 13. They call it the doorway to hell, and once you see it, the name stops feeling dramatic. The Darvaza gas crater is a massive pit in the desert. Its walls collapsed into a natural bowl that's been on fire for decades. Flames lick constantly from the ground, day and night, fed by natural gas that was never meant to burn in the open like this. What makes it unsettling isn't just the fire, it's the scale. You approach expecting a campfire-sized curiosity. Instead, you're standing at the edge of a crater big enough to swallow buildings, glowing orange, roaring softly, radiating heat you can feel on your face. There's no barrier, no fence, just a drop into fire and darkness. It was never supposed to last. The fire was lit to burn off gas quickly. Instead, it kept going and going, long enough to feel permanent, long enough to feel intentional. The desert is silent around it, which makes the flames feel louder, alive, like the ground is exhaling something it's been holding for a very long time. It doesn't chase you. It doesn't threaten you. It just sits there, burning patiently, reminding you that sometimes humans open a door they don't know how to close, and the earth doesn't rush to help them. Story 14. Isla de las Muñecas is disturbing before you even know the story. Hundreds of dolls hang from trees, missing eyes, cracked faces, limbs tied on with wire. They sway, knock together, and stare in different directions, like they're tracking movement you can't see. Nothing here is arranged neatly. It's accumulated layer by layer over decades. The island's caretaker believed the spirit of a drowned girl haunted the place. To appease her, he began hanging dolls he found in the canals. He never stopped. When he died, his body was found in the same water where the girl supposedly drowned. What makes the island unsettling isn't the folklore, it's the intent. Every doll was placed deliberately. Someone walked out here, alone, over and over, and decided this was necessary. That kind of sustained ritual leaves a mark on a place. There's no jump scare, no sudden threat, just constant eyes, constant presence. A sense that you're being watched by things that were never meant to watch back. Isla de las Muñecas isn't scary because the dolls might move. It's scary because someone believed they already were. Story 15. On foot, Death Valley isn't dramatic. It's terminal. It's the hottest place on Earth, but the heat isn't the scariest part. It's the scale. Endless ground that looks walkable until you try it. Distances lie. Landmarks don't move. Every direction feels the same, and the air gives nothing back. Water doesn't evaporate here. It vanishes from you. Wet stops helping. Shade is theoretical. Your body starts making decisions you didn't authorize, slowing down, misjudging steps, convincing you that resting is reasonable even when rest means not getting up again. People imagine deserts as empty. They're not. They're full of time. Time to get tired, time to get confused, time to realize rescue only happens if someone knows you're missing. And most people in Death Valley aren't. The ground won't collapse. Nothing will chase you. You'll just keep walking until walking isn't an option anymore. That's what makes it terrifying. Death Valley doesn't attack. It waits and lets you do the rest yourself. Story 16. The middle of the ocean is terrifying because you've given up control. No landmarks, no edges, no solid reference for distance or direction. Just water in every direction and depth beneath you that your brain can't meaningfully process. You float there, knowing the surface is a skin, not a floor, and everything below it owns the advantage. What makes it worse is the uncertainty. You don't know what's under you, and you never will. Most of it isn't interested in you, but some of it can be, and you won't see it coming. Vision belongs to depth, not to you. Sound travels farther down there. Movement carries. Even without predators, the ocean doesn't need help to end you. Currents decide where you go. Weather decides when you panic. Fatigue decides how long you last. You can be perfectly healthy and still lose the argument just by being small and out of place. On land, danger usually has a direction. In the open ocean, it's everywhere, including below. You're not being hunted. You're just not in charge anymore. Story 17. There's a small island called Ilha de Queimada Grande off the coast of São Paulo, Brazil, that is home to the highest concentration of golden lancehead vipers, one of the most venomous species of snake in the world. They are unique to this island alone, and its venom causes your flesh to rot off your bones. The island is so densely packed with these snakes that there are up to 5 snakes per square meter of the island. You could stand anywhere on the island and be no more than a few feet from a golden lancehead viper. Apparently, there was only a lighthouse keeper who lived on the island with his family, but they did not survive long. After a while, snakes crawled through their windows. Panicking, they ran outside into the forest, where they were confronted with thousands of more vipers, and were bitten numerous times running through the forest by snakes hanging overhead by branches. They all died before they reached their boat, and their bodies were found scattered throughout the forest later by a Navy vessel making a routine supply stop. There was also an attempt to build a banana plantation on the island, but that also quickly ended in a disaster as workers were dying from the vipers. The island is forbidden to civilians by the Brazilian Navy. Story 18. My room. Spider eggs hatched recently, which I only found out about when dozens of spiders started crawling from behind my table and scattered. I'm screwed. Okay, yeah. Nope. That's nightmare fuel. When dozens of spiders suddenly scatter from behind furniture, that's not a spider problem. That nest just went live. Egg sacs hatch all at once. You don't get a warning spider. You get many moving in different directions, immediately disappearing into cracks you didn't even know existed. The worst part isn't the ones you see, it's the ones that vanish under baseboards, into fabric, behind outlets. Your brain clocks the math instantly and spirals. What makes it so unsettling is the loss of certainty. Your room was a controlled space, familiar, yours. Now it's compromised. You're hyper-aware of every itch, every shadow, every tickle of air on your skin. Sleep becomes a negotiation. The spiders themselves aren't dangerous. That's not the point. The point is that the boundary failed. You didn't invite them. You didn't notice them. And now the environment has changed without asking you first. You're not crazy for feeling screwed. That reaction is ancient and valid. Practical note, because panic needs an outlet. Vacuum immediately, empty it outside, wash anything fabric nearby, seal cracks, and yes, this is one of the rare times where calling pest control is completely reasonable. You're not weak. You're just suddenly sharing territory you thought was yours. And your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Story 19. Not the most terrifying, but one of the more terrifying places I've ever been to. Is called the Knife's Edge on top of Mount Katahdin in Baxter State Park in Maine. You reach what seems to be the top of this mountain, then descend 100 feet vertically into what is called the chimney. It is called this because a 50 feet ahead is a 100-foot vertical climb that is necessary to continue. At the top, you reach the Knife's Edge, a trail that is only 3 feet wide. On either side, it drops thousands of feet. This section of trail is nearly half a mile long. At the end, you finally reach the proper peak of the mountain. Some members of my group were crawling to minimize the chances of falling. I was running and jumping along the trail. In retrospect, not a great idea. Story 20. Somalia gets mentioned less than it should because it's not cinematically dangerous, it's structurally dangerous. For decades, Somalia has lacked consistent central control. That doesn't mean chaos everywhere all the time, but it does mean the rules change block by block, day by day, depending on who's holding power right now. Militias, warlords, extremist groups, clan dynamics, all overlapping, all fluid. What makes it terrifying isn't constant violence. It's unpredictable. There's no reliable emergency response, no guaranteed safe authority to appeal to. Kidnapping isn't rare. Wrong turns matter. Being foreign matters. Even locals live with a constant background calculation of risk. Where to go, when to move, who's watching. In many dangerous places, you can learn the system and play by it. In Somalia, the system itself isn't stable long enough to learn. The same road can be safe one week and lethal the next. Safety isn't a condition, it's temporary permission. That's why journalists, aid workers, and diplomats operate behind layers of security, armored vehicles, and strict protocols. Not because danger is guaranteed, but because absence of danger is never guaranteed. Somalia isn't scary because something is always happening. It's scary because anything can happen, and there's no higher layer to fall back on when it does. Story 21. In the US, I'd have to say the Nevada desert between Reno and Vegas. A favorite haunt of roadside serial killers, an army-run munitions depot, or possible minefield in Hawthorne, which is across the street from the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, across the street. Why in the name of God is there a submarine base in the desert? As a prior submariner, I haven't a clue. I ended up driving a part of that road at night, where the rumble strips are also on the center lane to keep the drunk drivers going straight because there's no cops out there. I pulled into what I thought from afar was a crappy little mom-and-pop gas station, but instead was a roadside trailer park. One of the doors swung open, then slammed shut. A second later, every trailer started turning all their lights off. I booked it out of there. Story 22. Being in North Korea, especially Pyongyang, is unsettling because nothing is wrong in an obvious way. It's quiet, clean, ordered, almost serene. Wide streets with barely any traffic. People walking calmly, politely, deliberately. The city feels paused, like a museum display that's still breathing. And that calm is what makes it scary. It feels like time travel, but not to a single year. More like a version of the world where modern life forks differently. TVs aren't assumed, phones aren't ambient. Information doesn't hum in the background. Instead, ideology does. Portraits watch from walls. Statues dominate space. Every apartment, every building, every public room has faces looking down. Inescapable, unquestioned. The pins are the part that sticks with you. Everyone wears one, not occasionally, always. It's not decoration, it's confirmation. A constant, silent signal of loyalty you never get to turn off. What makes it uniquely frightening isn't threat, it's totality. You're never alone. Even when the streets are empty, every interaction feels staged, but not for you. For something larger, permanent, unseen, Pyongyang doesn't feel hostile. It feels complete. And that's what lingers. The sense that you're calm, safe, and utterly out of place in a system that doesn't need you to believe in it, only to exist inside it quietly until you leave. Story 23. The Kola superdeep borehole is terrifying because it's quiet, and because we stopped on purpose. It's the deepest hole humans have ever drilled into the earth, over 12 kilometers straight down. Not a cave, not a mine. A needle pushed into the planet's crust to see what was there. And what they found wasn't lava or a hollow earth fantasy. It was heat, pressure, and rock behaving in ways it wasn't supposed to. Temperatures were far higher than predicted. Rock became plastic. Instruments failed. Drilling slowed to a crawl. The earth didn't block them. It made continuing pointless. What unsettles people are the stories, strange noises, screams, myths about hell. Those aren't real, but the reason they persist is, we hit a depth where physics stopped matching our expectations, where the models broke, where the planet reminded us it isn't obligated to be understandable. The borehole is sealed now, just a welded cap in the ground, easy to miss. No warning signs, no monument. But it's still there, a reminder that we tried to look inside the earth and decided we'd seen enough. Story 24. Hashima Island, Gunkanjima, gets under your skin because it feels airtight. It's a slab of concrete in the ocean, walls on every side, no trees, no soft edges. At its peak, it was the most densely populated place on Earth. Then the coal ran out and everyone left, all at once. What remains are apartment blocks with rooms still laid out like people just stepped out and forgot to come back. Imagine being trapped there overnight. No lights, no boats, wind slamming into broken windows so it sounds like footsteps in hallways that haven't had people in decades. Every sound echoes because there's nowhere for it to go. Concrete doesn't absorb, It remembers. The ocean doesn't help. Waves pound the seawall relentlessly, cutting off escape and reminding you that you're isolated by design. Hashima was built to keep people in as much as to keep the sea out. It's not haunted in the ghost sense. Its haunted infrastructure outlived its purpose. A city with no exits feels fine in daylight. At night, it feels like a sealed container that forgot to let you leave. Story 25. The Hoia Baciu forest is unsettling because nothing about it agrees on what's happening there. People report lights, missing time, equipment failures, the feeling of being watched. UFO sightings get the headlines, paranormal stories fill forums, but the detail that sticks is quieter, the circles. Clearings where nothing grows, perfectly round patches of dead ground, sometimes 30 to 40 feet across. Number trees. No grass. No regrowth. Oil that looks normal but refuses life. Romania isn't unique in that North Carolina has the devil's tramping ground, a circle where legend says the devil walks at night and plants die wherever his feet touch. Same shape, same refusal. What makes the Hoia Baciu versions disturbing is that they aren't marked or explained. You just come across them. One step is forest. The next is absence. Birds avoid them. Animals won't cross. People report nausea, anxiety, headaches when standing inside too long. It's not overtly dangerous. That's what makes it worse. No teeth. No claws. No chase. Just a place where life quietly opts out. Forests are supposed to reclaim everything eventually. When something stays empty for decades, the question isn't what happened there, it's what's still happening when no one's looking. Story 26. For a different value of scary than most of the posts here, I nominate Mount Yasur on the island of Tana in Vanuatu. Mount Yasur is an active, erupting volcano. Tana is a remote, off-the-grid island inhabited by, among others, America-worshipping John Frum cargo cultists. There's little government to speak of in Vanuatu, so there are certainly no guardrails or anything at the volcano. You can walk right up to the lip, watch chunks of liquid rock get flung in the air high above you, landing anywhere they damn well please. The air rains thick, gritty ash particles that you shake out of your hair for days. In terms of my inner monkey brain screaming, "What the hell are we doing here? Go, go, go," it's one of the most terrifying places on Earth. I don't know what kills you when you're hit by falling magma. Are you crushed, punctured, or burned? But my brainstem did not want to hang around to find out. On the other hand, my rational brain was consumed by how overwhelming something like a volcano is when compared to a mere person. Mount Yasur simply doesn't give a crap about you. It was a great example of what Burke calls the sublime. Story 27. The deep ocean is terrifying because it's functionally alien. Below a certain depth, sunlight doesn't fade, it's gone, permanently. The only light comes from living things. And they don't glow to be pretty. They glow to hunt, lure, confuse, or warn. Every flicker is a strategy. Every shape is a compromise made under pressure that would crush anything from the surface in seconds. We've explored only a tiny fraction of it, and what we have seen is already unhinged. Transparent bodies, teeth bigger than skulls, limbs designed to sense vibrations instead of touch. Life that assumes scarcity, darkness, and violence as the default state of existence. What gets under your skin isn't just the creatures, it's the scale. Miles of water below you, entire ecosystems stacked vertically, places where sound travels farther than sight and movement is detected, long before it's seen. You could be observed without any possible way of knowing. People joke about Cthulhu, but that joke works because the ocean already fits the rules. Ancient, unmapped, indifferent, capable of hiding things forever. The deep ocean doesn't feel like part of Earth that we haven't finished exploring. It feels like a place we were never meant to visit long enough to understand. And the most unsettling part? Everything down there evolved assuming we would never arrive. Story 28. The North Atlantic Ocean in a storm is pure helplessness. There's no buildup, no cinematic warning. The wind hardens, the waves stop having rhythm, and suddenly the water isn't moving past you. It's coming from every direction at once. Random, steep walls of black water that don't care about timing or fairness. The cold is the first betrayal. It hits your chest and steals your breath before fear even registers. Muscles lock, thoughts narrow. The ocean doesn't need to drown you quickly. It just needs you to panic for a few seconds too long. What makes the North Atlantic different is its violence combined with temperature. These aren't tropical storms where survival feels possible if you're lucky. Here, exposure is a countdown. The water doesn't roar, it slams. The surface isn't a surface. It's a moving geometry problem you don't get to solve. You realize very fast how small preparation gaps become fatal ones. How equipment isn't optional. How experience only helps until it doesn't. On land, danger usually lets you run. Out there, there's nowhere to go, and nothing to hold on to but yourself, in a place that doesn't acknowledge you exist. Story 29, Egypt as a tourist. Imagine non-stop emotional warfare. Every moment of every day is exhausting. Here is a story. 45 plus, diesel-filled air. Streets are beyond loud. All you want is a drink. You find a stand that sells ice-cold Coke. You ask the vendor how much. He replies with 5 times what a Coke should cost. You shrug and ask for a discount. After a few minutes of bartering, he finally sells you the Coke for 3 times what everyone else pays. The next day, you go to the same guy and try to buy the same Coke for 3 times what everyone else pays. He says it's 5 times the price. Negotiation repeats. Now imagine this for every moment, every transaction, every day. I have seen tourists crying in the lobbies of hotels because they do not want to leave the hotel. Best sights in the world surrounded by thieves, liars, and horrid infrastructure. Story 30, I got trapped in an abandoned mental asylum, not my pick. In Northampton, Massachusetts. Well, not trapped, but the fire escape we used to get in decided to finally fall off the side of the building basically as we were using it. Everything on the ground and first floor was seriously boarded up, and most windows had iron grating over them anyway. So we had to go down, down, down through pitch black hallways to try to find a way out while being hunted by, it turned out, a security guard curious about the unholy crash of the fire escape. Story 31. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is terrifying because it vanished in the modern world. A wide-body jet, satellite tracking, radar, radios, hundreds of systems designed specifically to make disappearance impossible. And yet, somewhere between routine and cruise, it slipped out of the conversation and never fully came back. What we know makes it worse. The plane kept flying for hours after its last contact. It didn't explode. It didn't fall apart immediately. It stayed airborne, silent, crossing vast stretches of ocean while everyone on the ground lost the ability to see it. Whatever happened wasn't sudden, it was prolonged. The debris that later washed ashore only deepened the dread. Pieces torn by ocean forces, not impact on land. Proof that it ended at sea, but not where, not how, not why. The Indian Ocean is big enough to hide a city. It swallowed a jet. MH370 isn't scary because of a monster or a storm. It's scary because systems failed quietly and in sequence, and the world watched helplessly as a machine full of people continued on without witnesses. In an age where everything leaves a trail, MH370 reminds us that some places and some moments still erase you completely. Not with violence, with silence. Story 32. Probably North Korea. You are not allowed to leave. The smallest of crimes are punished severely. Extreme felonies are punished severely, locking you up along with your children and grandchildren. The government provides little support for its people. The government is corrupt and biased towards only those it supports. The government blasts anti-American and pro-Korean propaganda at its people, whom of which probably have never seen a globe with nothing but North Korea on it, have never seen how good life is in other countries. Tourists are kidnapped. They threaten the world which they wish to rule with nuclear weapons, just to get a bit of money to go on, etc. Basically, North Korea is the poor kid on welfare who is part of a cult which is against the very thing supporting it. Story 33. Bushman's hole is absurdly terrifying because it hides behind normality. From the surface, it's nothing. A puddle at the bottom of a hill. A narrow slot you could step into without realizing what you're standing over. And then you learn that beneath it is a freshwater sinkhole nearly 900 feet deep and wider than 2 football fields. Straight down into pitch black water that absorbs light and sound. There's no gradual reveal, no warning slope. One step too far and you're no longer in a pond, you're over an abyss. Deepwater divers love it because they're built differently, or broken in a very specific way. Records have been set there, people have died there, equipment fails, visibility collapses. The darkness isn't poetic, it's total. Down there, orientation is optional and mistakes are permanent. What makes Bushman's hole uniquely disturbing isn't monsters or myth, it's geometry. The idea that something so vast can be accessed through something so small. That the entrance doesn't look like danger. If you woke up there without gear, you wouldn't panic. You'd just never come back up. It's not a place that threatens you. It's a place that lets you fall and keep everything you give it. Story 34. The Odessa Catacombs are terrifying because they don't behave like a place you can learn. They're not a single cave system. They're a sprawl. Thousands of kilometers of tunnels carved out over centuries. Layered, intersecting, collapsing, rerouting. Old mining shafts, smuggler routes, partisan hideouts, dead ends that aren't marked as dead ends, maps that are incomplete, outdated, or just wrong. People underestimate them because the entrances are casual, basements, courtyards, storm drains. You can step inside without feeling like you've crossed a threshold. And once you're in, everything looks the same. That New Year's story is the one locals use as a warning. A group goes in drunk, laughing, confident. One person gets separated, no panic at first, just shouting, then silence. Her body wasn't found until years later, not because they didn't look, but because you can search forever down there and still miss entire branches. The catacombs don't trap you aggressively, they erase direction. No signal, no light, no airflow you can trust. Just choices that all feel reasonable until you realize you don't know which way out is anymore. Most dangerous places threaten you directly. The Odessa Catacombs just let you keep walking until you don't come back. Story 35. The Pitcairn Islands are unsettling because isolation didn't make them peaceful, it made them closed. They're absurdly remote. Tiny islands in the middle of the South Pacific, reachable only by long sea journeys. The original settlers were the mutineers from the Mutiny on the Bounty, who fled there with Polynesian men and women to disappear from the world. And for a long time they succeeded. That's the problem. When a place is that small and that cut off, there's no outside pressure to correct what goes wrong inside. No anonymity, no real escape. Culture doesn't evolve, it calcifies. By the time the modern world looked closely, the island's population had shrunk to around 50 people, and a horrifying pattern emerged. A large portion of the adult male population was charged with assault. What makes Pitcairn terrifying isn't violence in the open, it's normalization. The idea that something can become routine simply because there's nowhere else to go and no one else to answer to. You don't fear Pitcairn because you might get lost. You fear it because if something happens, there's no crowd, no system, no distance to hide behind. Isolation is often romanticized. Pitcairn is what happens when isolation stops being a setting and becomes a rule, and the rule never lets go.